Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taormina.
Welcome to OAA Now. Here I'm Sammy Taormina, blogger around the OAA, the host of Last Week Brain Cells, and the host of Between Terminas on Orion Television. I'd like to welcome those watching on the local voice on SoundCloud and those watching on Orion Television. A lot to look at this week. We're going to recap, obviously, what happened to West Bloomfield. Obviously, we're going to talk about Ferndale's situation, and we're going to look ahead. Recapping the season, also looking at ahead to spring sports, where they start up. Of course, everybody's on spring break, so a lot to look at this week here on the edition here of the podcast. So, without further ado, let's look at our main story here. Obviously, recapping West Bloomfield. Their path, obviously, of course, winning in the state quarterfinals against Utica Ford, knocking them off. I was surprised at the score, honestly. When you look at that score, I mean, it was just surprising to the fittest. And I just think about was coming in that game. Ford had a lot of experience. They had a lot of good shooting. They had a lot of good athleticism. They had a very good player in Davis who was very, very good. Kind of talked about last week with Anthony on the podcast. We mentioned about the concerns that I had. Obviously, the influence of Columbus Williams, being a former assistant over there at Ford, getting them some insight about West Bloomfield. But it really didn't matter in that game at Detroit. It really did not matter. West Bloomfield, behind their balance, of course, Sheridan Beal, the Gamble Jones sisters, Ava Lord, they went in there and they held Utica Ford to their lowest points total of the year. They only scored 35 points, which was just mind-boggling considering, how good an experienced Utica Ford is. I mean, to hold them off to 35 points, and they had a really impressive, 53-35 win against them, which is just surprising to hold them to 35 points. You got to give Coach Darren McAllister a lot of credit there in that game. You really have to, just the way they played that one. I was surprised they kept Davis in check. They did a really good job. Give credit to London Hall. I thought she did a really nice job matching up against Davis in the interior. And then they had everybody else. They focused on the shooters. They focused on, they focused on the shooters. They focused on the, what their matchups were. They switched matchups a lot. And, what they did was just, basically played their style of game. And, it was a slow start early, both teams. And then West Bloomfield found their edge and found their experience, and that ended up being the difference. I thought that in that game was the experience factor. I mean, let's not forget. I mean, yes, West Bloomfield lost a lot of talent. I mean, obviously you lose the Davis sisters, you lose Destiny Washington. Those are big losses and hard to replace. And Kendall Hendricks as well. I mean, those are big players to replace. But let's not forget. You look at Sheridan Beal, you had the Gamble Jones sisters, Ava Lord. I mean, all of them were on that team, so they saw some playing time. And they see the hard work and the dedication that it takes to get there. So, West Bloomfield now goes to East Lansing, Michigan State, for the fourth straight year. They got to take on Belleville. And it's a rematch of an 84-49 just disaster for the Lakers over at Belleville in the KLA Challenge in December, on December 18th. Actually, December 12th. West Bloomfield just got absolutely pummeled by Belleville. They just got pummeled by them. And that was part of the early struggles for West Bloomfield, was that embarrassing loss to Belleville at Belleville. So, so now you're looking at that rematch. You're saying to yourself, West Bloomfield has to play better. They're going to play better. We know Belleville is a very good team. We know they got players. They got proven players. I mean, They had an emerging sophomore in Sydney Savory, who wouldn't surprise me in the next 2 years is probably going to win Miss Basketball in the state. I mean, she's a good player. Don't get me wrong. She's a really good player. I mean, inside out game's good. She can go. And obviously we know Savory, of course, is the sister of Orchard Lake St. Mary's and future Michigan State football player Jaden Savory. And of course, Orchard Lake St. Mary's went to the Final Four for boys basketball, and they ended up getting beat by East Lansing. So it's interesting, you know what I mean? Obviously, the Savory name, leads to mittens, I guess. It leads to big mittens. So in the game against West Bloomfield, obviously, you look at West Bloomfield. If this was West Bloomfield's team of last year, I think this is a different outcome. I really do. But it's not. So the game ended up starting up just really rough for West Bloomfield. It was just absolutely a disaster. They start off down 21-7. And that was early. They battled back to come back and make it 31-29 at one point. In the middle of the third quarter, West Bloomfield cut that deficit to 2 points. So you kind of think, okay, here. You know what I mean? That experience, that was a championship experience, a championship mantra. But Belleville ended up scoring 7 straight points and then pulling away, winning that one. They pulled away, didn't get the lead back, and it was between 9 and 5 throughout. And West Bloomfield ended up falling to Belleville 60-55. Belleville moved on to the Division I state finals, took on Rockford. Couldn't believe what they did to Rockford. I was just surprised that, they held Rockford to 0 for 17 shooting from downtown. I could not believe that. And they knocked off Rockford. They knocked them off. And Rockford obviously had Miss Michigan State basketball winner Anna Winovich. So you think about it, Belleville ends up going on winning their first Division I state championship in girls basketball under Coach Jason Wilkins. I know Jason very well. I know he does the Michigan Basketball Insider. I know he's very involved with that. And I know the rest of his crew. I know him very well. Swell guys, good people, very good people. You look at the difference in that game between West Bloomfield and Belleville. I thought was the start. I just think honestly, the difference of the game was the start. If the start was, a little bit tighter, if it was tighter, West Bloomfield I thought would have had a chance, but wasn't. You can't start off down 14. Then you're going to be wasting a lot of energy trying to come back. And, look what happened. Look what happened. Sheridan Beal led West Bloomfield with 17 points, but also Breasia Gamble Jones also had 17 points. London Hall at 13 for the Lakers. Sydney Savory, of course, led Belleville with 21 points. I just think, you look at for West Bloomfield, I thought this season for them was kind of a success, even though they didn't get the ultimate goal, which was the Division I state championship. But you kind of got to give Coach Aaron McAllister his due. Obviously, you look at where they were. West Bloomfield started off the year 1-4. 1-4. With a very difficult schedule. And, it was very, very difficult for them. Especially when you have a new team. You're coming off, you lose obviously 4 very, very talented players. 4 of them who are all in playing basketball. Not sure about Destiny Washington, but you know the career that she's had over there. You obviously know Kendall Hendricks is playing ball. And obviously we know the Davis sisters playing at Georgia. I'll be curious to see where their career path goes. If they stay there, if they transfer out, I don't know. But you look at West Bloomfield, for them to start off 1-4, you kind of think to yourself, is the wheels falling off? I thought coming into the year, the question marks that I had for West Bloomfield was going to be is how are they going to gel? How are they going to gel? Is Sheridan Beal ready to take on the next step? Can the Gamble Jones sisters rise the occasion? I mean, obviously, we know the history of the Gamble Jones sisters. They transferred into West Bloomfield from Muskegon. And they fit this team pretty well. They fit him pretty well. And you look at, of course, obviously, you look at London Hall's been very good for this team. Ava Lord's been very good for this team. And then Sheridan Beal obviously taking the lead role. So you look at West Bloomfield, and then they turn it around going 19-5. Having that stretch, kind of like you're thinking to yourself, okay, this West Bloomfield team might be back. And this team might be, are they better than the teams in the past? Probably not. But here they are. Here they are. I mean, you look at the postseason path that they had to go through. Obviously, having to play Orchard Lake St. Mary's in the first round. That's not an easy matchup at all. In the district final. That's not an easy matchup at all. I mean, this West Bloomfield was the number 2 seed in their district. Which that tells you a lot right there. The fact that they were the number 2 seed in their district and staring at Orchard Lake St. Mary's, a very good program. It's on the rise. Under Coach Brad Crichton, who's done a really good job with that Eagle program. The former girls basketball coach at Stony Creek and the former boys basketball coach at Rochester Adams. And an assistant under Todd Colbert for the boys program. He's done a wonderful job with that Eaglets girls program. He's done a really good job. And for them to win a hard-fought 41-36 game, that says something right there. It says something. And then they go to the regionals. You knock off a good Grand Blanc team. Obviously, you look at Bob Taylor's team this year. They lost some key pieces, but they did a really good job, especially shutting McQueen down in that regional semifinal. And then you're looking at Clarkston. And then there's Clarkston. You're staring Clarkston down. You split with them you split with them during the season. Obviously, you lose by 7 at Clarkston. And then you get them back by 1 point at your building. So, and then what they did to them was hung around, and then took advantage of some mistakes by Clarkston. I mean, obviously the Eliana Roback tech did not help things. The Avery Hernandez tech didn't help things. But I think, they took advantage of it. And West Bloomfield did not play very well in that one. They really did not. I mean, the shooting, Sheridan Beal did not have a good game despite the points she had. She did not play well in that one. And then, of course, we mentioned with Utica Ford, they got by them and got their match with Belleville. So when you look at West Bloomfield's pass, you kind of think, okay, this was a program, that was not expected to do much heading into the year, let alone have another Final Four run. So that kind of tells you something right there about West Bloomfield. Now you look at them next year, they lose some key pieces. They lose The Gamble Jones sisters, they lose Ava Lord. They do. I mean, like they do return Sheridan Beal. They do have they do have London Hall coming back. So there's really 2 starters from that team that is back. But they got some big question marks next year. For a team, program strength wise is a bit concerning. When you look at the sub varsities, they were up and down this year, up and down. But I have confidence in their coaching staff. I do have a lot of confidence in them. I know them very well. I know Jamie Gentz very well, former coach at Southfield. He's done a wonderful job as an assistant. You got Tamisha Washington, JV coach there. She's done a wonderful job with that program there. I gotta remember the freshman coach's name. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember it right now. But he's done a really I think it was Coach Pierce. He's done a really nice job with that team. He's done a really, really nice job with them, with that freshman team. So West Bloomfield, they got 3 programs. They got 3 programs, which, you look at it from a program strength perspective, that's a good sign. Anytime, but I know there's teams that have 2 programs, and I think a lot of that's the numbers. But, when you have three programs, that says a lot. That tells you program strength right there. I mean, so West Bloomfield, they have program strength. So that is that's huge for the future when you look at it. And I know the rules have adapted. Obviously, you have the addition of the 5-quarter rule. I know some teams use it. Others don't, but I think when you look at the game of girls basketball, I think the more you get, the better I think the game is. I think the more players, the game is better. So, for West Bloomfield, program strength there. When you're looking at likely the division West Bloomfield is going to be in, likely be in the red, they got some questions. Especially who's going to be that true point guard. Is Sheridan Beal going to have to play that role? It's a dangerous role for her because I think Sheridan Beal's better off ball. I think she's much better off ball. Because if she has to play point guard, that could be very interesting. That could be really interesting. So, a lot of questions for West Bloomfield. I mean, a lot of them. When you look at this team heading into next year, I mean, the players they lose, it's a big loss. I mean, you look at next year, you know what I mean, for them, is can West Bloomfield get back to where they've been in the past? Obviously, winning the red, being in that red championship race. Obviously, this year they had some tough losses. Losing to Clarkston, losing to Stony Creek, which was mind-boggling on their home floor. I think they had at least 2 losses, which was just, that ended up being the difference of winning a league championship and not winning a league championship. So West Bloomfield is going to be right there in that conversation. They're going to be right there. So the questions that I have for the Lakers is going to be, who's that ball handler going to be? And they're a team to watch this offseason. I mean, I don't know where Coach Jerry McAllister is going to have this program as we keep an eye on them this offseason. Because it is clear West Bloomfield is going to have to find a ball handler. They're going to have to find a point guard. They're going to have to find a true point guard. I mean, that's the big question that I have with them is, can they do it? And if they do it, they could be right back in the conversation. So, we'll see. But West Bloomfield for them this year, they had an incredible run, incredible postseason journey getting to the Final Four. Ran to a very good Belleville team. it was going to be tough. It was going to be challenging. So, it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Congratulations, West Bloomfield, having a really good year, having a really great season. And next year, we're going to see what happens with them. We're going to see really what happens. So we're going to stay with girls basketball for a minute here because I got to talk about a coaching change here coming up at Ferndale. Devin Pettaway has stepped down coaching the Eagles. Of course, he was the interim coach at Ferndale after Keith Paris stepped down middle of the year. Ferndale finished the year at 10-16. They won They won a district championship. They got to the regional finals where they were just absolutely shellacked by Detroit Edison. Detroit Edison ended up going to the Breslin Center. They lost in the state semifinals to Grand Rapids West Catholic, which was, I did not expect that one to happen. Obviously, with how good Detroit Edison, their talent is. So when you look at the state of the Eagles program and you look at the season that Ferndale had, coming in the year, there were some warning signs coming into the year for them. There were some warning signs. You kind of had to figure out, okay, where is this team going to be at coming in to the season? Where was this team going to be at? I know a lot of people in the media hyped Ferndale up to say they're this next great team. They're probably going to be the next West Bloomfield. I mean, I was not buying it coming in the year. I was not buying it. They added 2 transfers, and Gabby Douglas came up from Macomb, Dakota. And also Kamara Page, who came over from A&T. They were not on the team middle of the year. They were not. There was, I guess, some turmoil within the program, and both of them left Southfield. Both of them left Ferndale and, went elsewhere. Now, I don't know where they went, but, Ferndale was down to 9 players. It started off with 9 players. Then it went down to 6. And then they were at 7 most of the year, between 6 and 7 kids. And then, but they still were a very talented team. I mean, they still were a very talented team, despite all the struggles and all the, everything that's going on everything that's going on behind the scenes. This team, when they got on the court, was very competitive. I mean, you've seen it. Yes, they lost everybody in the red this year, at least once. But when they knocked off Lake Orion, they knocked off Stony Creek, that gave them some confidence heading into the postseason, where their district was not as strong. I mean, you kind of look at with Hazel Park not being in the postseason despite hosting the district. They did not have a team. I think a lot of that's because of the injuries that they had. But Ferndale obviously earning the number 1 seed despite the struggles. You kind of thought that they were going to play Ferndale University in the first round. But, of course, Madison Heights Lampier knocked off Ferndale University. And we know how good Ferndale University had turning their program around under Coach Benny. Benny did a really nice job of that program. He's done a really nice job. He turned that program around at Ferndale U. You got to give him a lot of credit for what the job he's done over there, right next door for Ferndale. But Ferndale University was winless last year. They were winless. And for him to get the 10 wins, that says a lot to the job that he's done. And he's got the majority of that team coming back. So Ferndale University could be a team on the rise there over there. But the Ferndale's credit, they ended up winning. They knocked off Centerline, blew them out, and then they knocked off Madison Heights Lampier, winning the district championship, and then going to the regional, which was at Detroit Edison, which you knew it was going to be tough if they had to play the host team, So Ferndale had to play Redford Union, and you look at that matchup, you kind of thought, okay, you know what I mean? Ferndale, I think the schedule, playing in the red, would help them here. Redford Union was not very good. They were not that strong, and Ferndale took advantage of it and won that game pretty handily, setting them up to take on Detroit Edison, and look what happened. Got blown up by 50 points. Now, I had hints, obviously, with Coach Pettaway, was he was going to step down at Ferndale. He was going to step down. And I had hints. And it was confirmed on the MHA website when a team puts the word not assigned on their sheet. When they say that, they're looking for a new coach. So you kind of you're looking at the questions for Ferndale, for the new coach who comes in there. You're going to be walking into basically a program that's starting over. Now, whoever the coach is going to be, whether he or she, is going to have a very difficult path ahead of him. Because you're going to lose some key players. You lose 2 key seniors. But then now you're going to have to try to keep everybody together. Which that's going to be really, really difficult. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of those kids that were on the team this year at Ferndale transfers out. It would not surprise me. And then the program's back starting from scratch again. So you kind of think about with Ferndale is just everything that this team's been through, the struggles they've been through, and now you're going to have to start over from scratch. Which that's going to be really difficult on anybody, let alone a person who's coming in there to say, okay, what is it going to take to bring Ferndale back? What's it going to take to put them in the pedestal of the boys program? And obviously we know the pedestal of the boys program. Juan Rickman's done a really nice job with that team. He's done a really great job with that team, leading them to a Division II state championship. Now, the last 2 years, they've had tough districts. Obviously, deal with Warren Lincoln. And then last year, it was a shocking loss that they lost to Detroit Pershing. So, to have them, I think, to me, the Rickman style, when it comes to, when it comes to program strength, it's a little bit different it's a little bit different from the boys program to the girls program. It is a lot different. Because in the girls program, you have to build program strength. You got to. You can't rely on transfers. You can't rely on, the middle school program. You can't rely on it. Based in, when you look at a Lake Orion or a Clarkson or an Oxford, where you have a strong middle school team, but they got to go through the freshman level, the JV level. You know what I mean? At Ferndale, you can't just say your middle school program's your JV team. You can't just say that. Because it's going to take them some time to develop. It's going to take some time to really develop it. You just can't just go from like 8th grade to varsity because you're being put right in the fire right away. So whoever the new coach is going to have to build the program. He's going to have to build it. The problem is when you look at Ferndale, the enrollment, there's not a lot of students there. There really isn't. When you look at the enrollment, I mean, obviously you ask yourself then, why is Ferndale and Ferndale U, why is Ferndale in Division II for football? Because they're a co-op program with Ferndale U. So I'm going to be curious to see how this works at Ferndale. I will be very curious what direction they go. Because there are going to be some challenges ahead. Some serious challenges ahead. And you look at it, it can't be done overnight. Rome was not built overnight. And you don't know what division you're going to be in. I'll guarantee you right now, Ferndale should not be in the red. They should not be, considering everything that they're going to go through. I'd be shocked if Ferndale's in the red next year. I'd be really shocked. But when you look at the direction of the program, the new coach is going to have some challenges ahead of him. You got to recruit your own team, and you got to say, hey, my vision will help you get to the top. We'll win games. We'll win a district championship. We'll win a regional championship. We'll win a state championship. Believe in my vision. It's going to take years to build. It's going to take some time to build. That's the challenge that Ferndale's going to go through. That's going to be the challenge. The other one is, you look at it with Ferndale, it's going to come down to is, can they find the right person? I mean, this has got to be not just a 1-year thing. It's got to be like a 2-year thing or a 3-year thing or like a 4-year. I mean, I take that back. I think it's got to be more the lines of 5 years. If they can have a person in there for 5 years, build that program, stabilize the program, then I think Ferndale could be, I think Ferndale could be in the conversation. But when you look at for coaching, the pros for this job is you're working with a great athletic director in Juan Rickman. You're working for him. Great guy, great coach, had the Division II state championship. You learn a lot. The cons is you're going to have to build a program. You're going to have to build a program, and obviously you look at with Ferndale's situation, there's not a lot of kids at the school. There really isn't. That's the challenge that Ferndale faces. Is can the new coach re-recruit his own kids within the school, find the athletes, and to build this program up? Because it's clear as day, Ferndale needs something. They need something. And if most of the players transfer out, they might not field girls basketball next winter. They might not. And that would be really unfortunate. Because obviously you look at it, I mean, like, obviously you look at the success of Ferndale University. What they've done. Do they look at Benny? Does he make the move? Does he make the switch It'd be really interesting if he did. But I don't know what the interest is over there between with Benny and Ferndale I don't know what the interest is. But Ferndale University, right now, they're on the rightward path to building a program. There's a lot of questions with Ferndale when it comes to girls basketball. There really is. I think program structure has to be said, and that's got to be a first priority when you look at the girls program. Program structure. You just can't use the 8th grade as a JV team. You can't do that. It doesn't always work. It really doesn't. You have to build at least 2 programs with the high school program. You have to build at least 2. 3 is great. But you have to have at least a varsity program and a JV program. That's the challenge that Ferndale faces. That they have to get. They have to address. And that is for whoever the new coach steps in there. Whoever steps in there is going to have a very, very difficult challenge ahead of them. And you look at the situation there at Ferndale. And it's not... it's a tough one. But if they find the right person, I think they could make it work. They could make it work. But they got to find the right person who wants this job, who's very committed to this job, who wants to build a winner at Ferndale. That's the question, and that's the challenge that Ferndale boys basketball coach and athletic director Juan Rickman faces. They've got to find somebody who is committed there, not short term, long term. Because if they do, and they try and they recruit the school, and get girls to come out and play, that could help things for them in the future. And I think that would be the best case scenario for Ferndale. Is they got to recruit within the school. They got to recruit within the school. That's going to be the key going forward. I think for them going to the Red this year was a big mistake. I think that. Because it was clearly as day that they were not ready for the Red. They were not ready for the division. Even with the transfers they got. It's just the question was, coming into the year, when you play in a division like the Red, you have to have at least 3 programs or 2 very good ones. You look at the division right now. You look at Clarkson. Clarkson's got 3 programs. Their middle school program is very good. You look at Lake Orion. Lake Orion's got 3 programs. 3 middle schools, all very good. You look at Oxford. Oxford, 3 programs. 1 big middle school. Very good programs. Forgot to mention with Clarkson, they have 2 middle schools. Technically Clarkson Junior High and Sasheville Middle School, but you get the same idea. Very good programs. Both programs, very good programs. Stony Creek. Yeah, they got 2 programs, but, they should have 3. They got enough kids to have 3. But, you look at what they have 2 solid programs. You look at West Bloomfield. We know what they did in the varsity. 3 really good programs. And middle school programs solid. So you look at, there's a definition here when you look at what the Red brings. I really think, honestly, Ferndale made a mistake going to the red and not preparing with program strength. And that's where they're at now. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we're going to keep an eye on it, for sure. Who takes over the program over there? You know, a really tough road ahead. Obviously, you look at the division, you look at scheduling, your non-conference. You're going to have to clearly play a a weaker non-conference. That's clear as day. I'm considering what division Ferndale's in. So it's going to be interesting to see what Ferndale does. Obviously, with the direction that they go, they got some challenges ahead of them. Let's now go from girls basketball. Obviously, as I mentioned last week with the girls side of things, as we mentioned, as I talked to Anthony last week, the shortcomings, I put them on the blog at SaginawayForThe50@blogspot.com. Obviously, the boys basketball shortcomings is also on there as well. Also on the blog at SaginawayForThe50@blogspot.com. We're going to keep an eye on the coaching situation at Ferndale, as I mentioned. So we'll see what happens. Now we start spring sports. I know we started some parts of the season already underway. Couple teams we want to break down. Obviously, you look at from the state perspective in spring. In track and field, obviously, Oak Park's one of the teams to really keep an eye on, particularly in the girls. They've been dominant. As I mentioned with the state championships they've gotten, they're going to be a team to watch this year. So they're going to be a very interesting team to keep an eye on. They're known for the hurdles. They're known for the sprints. Mid-distance has been very good for them. When you look at their weaknesses, obviously field events is going to be a big weakness for Oak Park. On the girls' side. Boys' side, you got to keep... You look at the state, obviously. I think another girls' team to watch for is Rochester. I think Rochester could be... obviously, you got Lucy Cook there. They're another team I'm really high on this year. They got throwing. They got field events. They got sprints. Rochester's another team I'm really high on the girls' side as well. That can make some noise this year. Boys' side, you kind of got to start with... Adams, obviously, we know that Coach Eric Lohr's done a really nice job building that program. And I forgot to mention the girls' side, watch for Lake Orion. I think Lake Orion could be a very dangerous team this year. They got some questions, but I think Lake Orion, they got the sprints, they got the distance. They're going to be competitive. So I think three teams to watch for on the girls' side for track and field are Oak Park, Rochester, and Lake Orion. I think are teams to really watch for. Boys' side, you got to look at, of course, you look at Clarkston. Clarkston's loaded this year. They're a team to keep an eye on. Adams, obviously. And I think Troy could be a team to watch. I think Troy. Don't ask me why, but I think they could be a team to watch. So we'll see what happens. We're going to see what happens. But those are my three teams I'm watching carefully. Baseball, you look at Rochester, obviously, the success they've had. Rochester, they're loaded again this year. They got a lot coming back. They could be a team to really watch for. Lake Orion could be another one to watch for. They got the experience back. They got a pitching staff that's solid. Coach Andy Schramm's done a really nice job with that program. They're another team I'm keeping an eye on this year. And then I would say watch for I would watch West Bloomfield. When I look at the Lakers, this is a team that I think could be a Very dangerous team this year. I think they could be. Last year was kind of a bit of a down year for them, but I think they can make some noise this year. So West Bloomfield's definitely my another team I'm keeping a really close eye on this year. So my three teams I'm watching for in baseball are Rochester, Lake Orion, and West Bloomfield. Softball. Lake Orion starts off this one. Yes, they lost a lot from last season's team that went to state final, but this is still a very good team. They got some very good, promising freshmen up in Soapy Eaton and Lala Hill. Lala Hill, obviously, we heard from girls basketball. I think Lake Orion could be a very dangerous team this year. Despite the losses, despite question marks that they have, they're a scary group. I think Lake Orion, if they're in the right district or in the right postseason part of the district, I think they could really much make some noise. If they're north, I think they're going to win that. I think they'll get back to East Lansing. If they go north, I know east, you got Stony Creek, you got Macomb, Dakota out east. So that does stand some challenges, but Lake Orion's a team that I think could really make some noise this spring. They got a lot of promising freshmen on that roster. They got a lot of them. They got the pitching, they got the hitting. I think they could be a team that's really, really dangerous heading into the year. Another team to watch for, Stony Creek, as I mentioned. Stony Creek, they don't have the pitching that they had in years past. They got the hitting. So Stony Creek's a team I'm really keeping an eye on this year. They could make some noise this year. I think the Cougars could be in line for another really good year for Stony Creek. They could be in line. And then the third one I'm watching is Oxford. Oxford was a young team last year. Very young team. They got a lot of experience back. They got a lot of experience coming back. So when I look at Oxford, anytime you have the bulk of your team back, that says a lot. That's going to help this team out a lot. And I think, when you have that experience, you could make a deep postseason run. So Oxford would be a team that I think to really, really keep an eye on. So my top three I'm watching are Lake Orion, Stony Creek, and Oxford in softball. So we'll see how that goes. Let's look at girls lacrosse. You look at, obviously, Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills. Birmingham, we know they're loaded. Bloomfield Hills, we know they're loaded. Bloomfield Hills, of course, it's always been a perennial Final Four team. And then I think the wild card for me is Lake Orion. Despite the injury, despite some questions this year, I think Lake Orion's a team to really keep an eye on in girls lacrosse. So that's something to really keep an eye on there. So my top three in girls lacrosse I'm keeping an eye on are Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills, and Lake Orion. So those are three teams to really watch for there. Boys side, you got Clarkston. Clarkston's loaded, but I would be curious to see how that regional it sets up, especially with Heartland's in there. Lake Orion, when you look at the Dragons, it's a different team that they've had in years past, but when you look at the path that they have, going to Macomb County, I think going to Macomb County will help them, especially when they get into the quarterfinals. I think that'll be very interesting to see. Lake Orion obviously be one of the favorites in the regional there. So that'll be something to really, really watch for when you look at Lake Orion. The third team I'm keeping an eye on is a kind of like a little bit of a tweener, but I think Birmingham could be a team to really watch for. The Bulldogs, we know they're well coached. They've done a really nice job. They're my sleeper, and I think Birmingham could be a team to really, really keep an eye on. I think they could be their dark horse candidate. So we'll see what happens. So the boys teams I'm keeping an eye on for lacrosse are Clarkston, Lake Orion, and Birmingham's my wild card. Girls soccer. This is going to be really interesting. I just read the top 25 state teams before before we started the year. Obviously, the OAA is loaded with proven girls soccer teams. You look at Troy, Athens, you look at Adams, Stony Creek, Rochester. Adams, we know, is the defending Division I state champions. Then you have Oxford, Lake Orion, Clarkston are loaded teams as well. So when you look at girls soccer, you know you're going to have to deal with the Troy schools. Both Troy and Troy Athens are going to be very good this year. I expect both of them to be competitive. Bloomfield Hills, we know has been a perennial power. I expect Bloomfield Hills to be in the conversation again this year. I really think when you look at, then of course the three Rochester, Stony Creek, Adams, and Rochester. Of course, Rochester, we know, has had a history of not winning the big one. So it'll be very interesting to see how Rochester does. Stony Creek, we know they've been a really good program. They're well coached. Then Adams, obviously, is defending Division I state champions. So that's going to be really interesting. The Reds going to be loaded this year when you look at girls soccer. The white, you got to look at, Groves, Seaholm. They're going to be good, both teams. I think Lake Orion's the wild card here. A lot of experience back. Had a lot of postseason success. The way they won their district last year was just insane. Knocking off Oxford in a high-scoring game, knocking off Davison. They got a lot of experience coming back. So Lake Orion, I think, is going to be really dangerous this year. Oxford, we know they're going to be a good team. They got some good experience as well. So girls soccer, there's a lot of proven experience coming back. So that's going to be something to really, really keep an eye on going forward. So we'll see what happens in spring sports. I mean, tennis, obviously, you got Clarkson, you got Bloomfield Hills. Stony Creek's another one to keep an eye on there. And then, obviously, water polo. Groves is going to be there in that conversation. Seaholm being there as well. So, and then, of course, obviously, you got volleyball, boys volleyball. Still a club sport. That changes next year when boys volleyball becomes a official sport of the MHSAA. So it'll be really interesting to see how boys volleyball goes. Obviously, you got Lake Orion in there. You got Adams, Clarkston. Those are, I think, the three teams that really make some noise this year. That could make some noise this season. So, so that'll be something to really, really watch for going forward. Let's look at, of course, the MHA Representative Council. They did meet this past Friday. I didn't mention it on the blog, but they did make some big changes, particularly in hockey. They're going to add 2 games, which I think is the more games, the merrier for hockey. I think that'll be something that'll be a good thing for them. Also, they're going to do the NPR for field hockey. Obviously, field hockey, of course, you look at teams like West Bloomfield does field hockey. So that'll be something to really keep an eye on there. They're going to use the NPR system for that. Other than that, really not a lot of changes that are coming with the Representative Council. They announced most likely going to be in swimming. No, not swimming, but in hockey. And the 2 games. Really nothing really, like, when it comes to NPR postseason for sports like football or girls basketball, boys basketball. I know in cheer, I think they're going to start earlier, which, I don't know why they started late in the first place. I think that's really makes a lot of sense. Obviously, that would benefit, you look at the perennial powers in cheer, obviously through Rochester's, Lake Orion. So that'll be really interesting to see how the new rules they take into effect. Obviously, You look at next year's rulings. They're going to be really interesting to keep an eye on. So a lot to really look at when you look at when you look at, of course, with the representative council when they met. I know a lot of schools are on spring break, so I think all of Oakland County and I think all the OAAs is on spring break this week. So a lot to really look at as we head into the start of spring sports. I know a lot of people have been asking me about like football stuff and all that, and so like when are you going to release the early polls? When are you going to release the early polls? I've seen the early polls for some of these teams. I mean, and I've got some questions when I look at them. So, so we'll see what happens going forward as we head in there. But I'm not, I probably will release like my way too early top 24 within the next few days. I think I'm going to do that. It's not the official rankings, but it gives you an indicator where I'm standing at when it comes to season. I am going to include Waterford Kettering and Waterford Mott with them in the top 24 because they're going to be coming in the league. They're not coming in the league this year, but they're going to be worth keeping an eye on as both schools are in their final season up the Lakes Valley before they come the OAA for winter sports next winter. But then, of course, we got the Farmington schools leaving the league. Not in 2 years. So that'll be something to really keep an eye on, see what the direction the league goes. So we'll see what happens. Everybody, want to sign off here. Make sure you follow the blog at SagamWay4650 at blogspot.com. We're also keeping an eye on the coaching vacancies over at Oxford and also at Ferndale now for girls basketball. So we'll see what happens as we head forward. As we head forward to the start of spring sports, as we get ready to start the year with spring sports. So we'll see what happens going forward. Everyone, sign off here. Take care. God bless, and I will see y'all next week, everybody. Take care and God bless, and I'll see y'all next week. God bless.